Chris Mannheim.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I am the economic development consultant working with Ogle County.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, Mike Delaney.
Hey all, I'm Mike Delaney. I'm with University of Illinois Extension, as the background might suggest, and actually working closely with the Ogle County group.
And last time, Mike, did you not also work with Whiteside,
I was
correct?
going to say worked with the Whiteside group in cohort 1, Ogle County, and well, Ogle, Boone, Lee, Putnam, Stevenson in cohort 2, and then Ogle again, most recently in the Springs cohort.
You know what? Mike could run these programs with all the experience he has working with all these counties. I'm going to skip over Robbie since everybody knows him. Bond County, we have 2 people in a room.
Yeah, I'm Jacob Rail, Vice Chairman of the Bond County Board. I'm here with the county's IT Director, Scott White. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm here as
Brian.
well for Bond County. I'm just not with the guys.
Oh, okay. Noel, thank you for, I will also put your name in. Brian.
Adrian, Bill, good to see everybody. Brian Chapman, Connect, Jackson County.
Thank you very, very much. David.
Yeah, David Amor, the Knox County steering team from the second cohort.
Oh, that's great. Susan, you're joining Christy.
Yes, Susan from ELSA. And yeah, Christy and Katie is also here from ELSA.
Oh my gosh, good for you guys. Great turnout. Gary Camerano, sorry for the mispronunciation.
Okay, Camerano, Whiteside County Economic Developer, and with the Connect Whiteside cohort.
Okay, and Pat, I feel like I just saw you.
You did. Marcia Hewer and myself are here, Ogle County.
That's fantastic. Katie, I see you. Boy, I love the way you get around this state, and now you're helping the village of Elsa, right?
I live in Elsa Township, so I'm on the Elsa Connect team as well now after we finished up success stories in Perma City.
Okay, fantastic. And let's see, Mary Gay is here.
Everyone, my name is Mary Gay. I am with Leadership Council Southwestern Illinois. I was part of the Kaskaskia region team in, I believe, round 2, and then helped Schuyler County out for broadband breakthrough.
Another pro. Noel, I think we got you before. Who is representing Knox County Farm Bureau?
Hi, it's Haley Henenfant with Knox County with David on here.
Thank you so much. Art.
Good morning, Art Simberski with Comcast. We had the privilege of working with Knox County, and we're working with quite a few other counties as well.
Thank you very much. Lynn Lindberg. Lynn Anderson Lindberg.
You're muted, Lynn.
I'm muted, but I was also on a call, sorry.
Oh.
Lynn Anderson Lindberg with Jackson County, and I'm at the SIU Research Park.
Great, thank you. Cassie, good to see you.
Hello, good to see you again. Cassie Henshaw here, lead consultant for what is now formally called the Mercer County Prosperity Development Group, or Mercer County Prosperity for short. And I see my colleague Kyle is on here from Mercer County, and I have a sneaking suspicion that iPhone is Steve Moreland, but I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. Chad Miller.
Good morning, Chad Miller, the manager of the Kankakee County Farm Bureau. I'm not sure how long I'll be able to participate this noon hour, but I'll stay on as long as I can.
And you said you were with the Kankakee Farm Bureau?
Correct, Kankakee County Farm Bureau.
Thank you so much. Okay, Robert Henderson.
Good morning, Robert Henderson. I'm with the Connect Jackson County Committee.
Great. And my goodness, we're going into screen 2. Love this. I believe we have left off with Kay Page, actually.
Good afternoon, Kay Page from Comcast.
Thank you. Kyle.
Kyle McEwen, Mercer County Better Together. Good to see everyone. Part of the first cohort, just on the Mercer County team, led by Cassie and the county board, and really cool to see what they're doing with the prosperity movement.
Fantastic. Jen Alvarez.
Hi, I'm with Surf Internet. I'm working in Whiteside County cohort and then also various other counties for grant efforts in rural areas.
Did you say SERP?
Surf Internet, SURF.
Surf Internet. Thank you. Benjamin Wilson, I see you have identified yourself as Kankakee County.
I most certainly have. I'm Ben Wilson. I'm in the Kankakee Planning Department. I worked with Chad on cohort 2 with the program.
That's great. Beth Kreider.
Hi, everyone. My name is Beth, and I serve as the Regional Superintendent for Peoria County.
And let's see, I believe, I did get to Jen. How about, boy, I'm going to mess up the pronunciation. Is it Dane Raisa or Dana?
It's excuse me, it's Danny.
Oh,
Raisa.
Danny. Okay.
And I'm with Elsa.
Oh,
Susan
fantastic.
and Elsa. Mhm.
That's great. Kathleen or Kathy Brown, how are you?
Good afternoon. Thanks for setting this up. I'm Kathy Brown. I'm with the Greater Peoria EDC, Director of Rural Development and Outreach, and we've been involved in 3 planning activities within the Greater Peoria EDC region, Tazewell, Woodford, and Peoria.
That's great. Thank you, Kathy, for being here. Colleen. Colleen. And Danny, if you could mute, that would be great.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I do have Colleen on. Oh, here she's connecting to audio. That's great. And in the meantime, I do have an iPhone person. Would they like to identify themselves?
That is probably Mark Young. He's from Elsa. He's driving right now down the state.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the only person I didn't get was Colleen. If she'd like to put her name and affiliation in the chat, I would greatly appreciate it. Robbie, and if I missed anybody, did I miss anybody in the introductions? I am wowed, absolutely wowed by the turnout. Thank you all so much. Really, really appreciate this. So thank you, Robbie. So here we are, we're past the welcome and thank yous. And I just want to briefly say that the reason we're meeting, and we would like to continue to meet as you all work on your plans, is the funder of this program, Heartland Forward's Connecting the Heartland Initiative, has asked us to reach back to the communities and try to assess some progress that you've been making. and both tell some quantitative and qualitative, give them some quantitative and qualitative information. So we have a really good handle on the quantitative information because Shubika did such a wonderful job doing one sheets for all your counties that showed your unserved and underserved, and maybe perhaps she can share a link to those one sheets at some point during the conversation. So this was really about getting some other information from you. I do appreciate that about 2/3 of you, the last time I looked, had filled out the survey. And I really do urge those communities who didn't fill it out, and I won't single you out, to do so for us. So we try to get as close to the 12 of you as possible filling out the survey. It should take probably about under 10 minutes. And thank you, Shubika, for dropping the county one-pagers in the chat. And again, if there's any update to any of the one-pagers, we would greatly appreciate you providing corrections. And I know that Shubika would update those, but I think they were enormously helpful. And as she's done is sort of capture a snapshot by county or by participant. And I'm afraid, Elsa, we had to look at your larger county and didn't really zero in on your village per se. Same with Springfield. We had to look at Sangamon County and not Springfield itself. But I think the county data is a really good place to start. So again, thank you very much for being here today, for helping us interface with our funder. We are rolling out an Accelerate program in Tennessee right now, and we're in discussions with them to also roll out an additional program in a couple of other states. So obviously they want to see how we're all doing, and I say we collectively, as they continue to do other states with this program and assess the efficacy. What I'm going to do is turn this over to Robbie to review some of the significant findings we got from you all on the survey. And then the bulk of this time really is meant to go community by community, have you all give sort of an update to each other. Part of this is sharing information on strategies, sharing ideas that you might learn from each other. And we also really want to hear, and many of you were very forthcoming about how we could improve the program going forward. So we'll take both compliments and constructive ways that we could make this all work for counties that would enroll in these programs going forward. So Robbie, let me turn it over to you at this point.
Great, thank you. I'm hoping people can kind of see this screen. I'm going to try to be careful because I want people to feel comfortable with this survey, but so I'll stick with some of the more quantitative things. I'll also be quick because with so many people on this call, I would really like it to be, as Adrienne said, focused on the conversation about what's working well, and then particularly any questions or help that you all need. We can kind of have this be a group sharing opportunity for all of that. So just to give people here, we've had 10 responses so far. I put the link in the chat. We'd love it to get all groups to do this and fill out this survey. So if you haven't and you're kind of the team lead from your group, please just get on that. But for the time being, we're just going to look at some of the responses from the 10 groups that have completed this so far. So you can see from this first one, 44, almost half are started or completed projects in partnership with internet service providers. So I think that's really great. I'm sure that'll come up because obviously half of you it's still no, and so I'd be curious what the plans are there and what you're aiming to do, and then kind of similar results regarding some of this funding. So this is looking at have people applied for or currently, I don't know if this helps, to get federal or state funds, and then committed local dollars to a project, a significant amount there. So if people are having questions or concerns about how they're actually contributing to local dollars to a project or receiving federal or state funds, I'd like to get a update on that. I'm going to skip down some of these direct answers and just kind of go to some of these successes improvements, because I think this is maybe going to be a starting point. I think the best strategy will be to just go around to the group leads, and everyone gets about 2 or 3 minutes to kind of run through where they're at with their team, successes they have, or any significant challenges or questions, and we'll let the conversation go from there. But just to kind of run through, some of these successes right now, to do a little preview to help kind of prime the pump as some of you think about some of your successes. It looks like education, making sure the board gets educated to help supply local dollars, the relationships built. That seems to be a big indicator as well, kind of getting in contact with those internet service providers and really moving your communities forward. Similarly, most valuable parts of the Accelerate program, forming a local committee, getting some of the support, education, how to talk to companies. That seems to be coming up again and again. That's kind of one of the most requested documents that Bill worked on with the Accelerate guidebook, is that worksheet that shows, what are some top questions that you can bring to providers to kind of help those relationships along and see how you might be able to work together. And then again, to kind of prime the pump as far as what more is needed and what could be improved. Survey results, I think we get a mixed response on that. I think some people it's really helpful. Others, perhaps too much resources and time spent on that. So we might talk about that today is, how can you kind of continue to get value out of that survey? How can you kind of bring in the board and use that in conversations with internet service providers? And then feasibility studies. I think that's something that Bill might speak on. That's a theme that he noticed. Kind of the next steps is getting that sort of technical analysis done. And then this is something that also we saw with the broadband breakthrough program, which is kind of the ag focused-ish version of Accelerate that just concluded on May 4th that Ogle just participated in, that they can speak to. But there's kind of so much information now, so much really great information that Shabika and others put together with the mapping. And so a question of how do we best put that to use, seems like something that could grow with this team. So, and then finally, kind of barriers that we're noticing from this survey. I think it's honestly like kind of working with ISPs, having them come to the table and kind of getting projects, towards that next step of okay, how do we get the board and the ISP kind of speaking the same language, working on the same project? So
Robbie, can I just interject one thing here? I want to make a note of this first response, because I think one of the questions that we have is what additional programming might the Illinois Broadband Lab provide you? And I see this first response is whether they do not seem interested in complying or they don't understand the requirements, that there might be some education around various parts of this Connect Illinois program, whether it's prevailing wage or permitting or other things that people have questions about. I think that the state of Illinois would be grateful to hear from you all about what other educational opportunities or presentation opportunities could be made utilizing the wonderful resources of Illinois Extension, who of course does these regular webinars. So I think that would be something else we'd be interested in hearing from you all about. Robbie, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, but I just saw that first response and know that we sort of want to hear from people about that too.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, there's kind of three or some points that we're looking to get from this discussion would be ways that you can kind of ask questions to this group to try to get help. And myself and other members of the Illinois Broadband Lab, we're going to be kind of just taking notes to kind of take this into account, because after this large listening session that the Illinois Broadband Lab is conducting, which Gary, I know I saw you last night and others here on those sorts of things. Really, it's going to be trying to figure out, in addition to the planning for the state digital equity grant and the BEAD funds, how can we best serve people across the state that are trying to improve their broadband situation. So your input here, I think, will get to Matt Schmidt and others about kind of what resources and communication and education are needed to help with that Connect Illinois program. So with that, I think we'll kind of start, maybe kind of if someone has a burning question or comment, they can kind of start, and maybe perhaps throughout we'll sort of provide updates with different communities as they're going. So is anyone brave enough to kind of start the conversation off with a success or a question or any of the above?
Otherwise, we're going to go alphabetically, guys.
Brian Chapman, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, Robbie, I'm happy to start. So I just printed out Shapinka's one pager for Jackson County, and it does seem like the numbers are settling in now between the state map and the FCC map of what is considered unserved and underserved. Is that correct?
I actually would love Shabika to chime in here on that question.
Because our numbers are shrinking, right, from what we originally started from. So, and as you know, this is vital then for the grant applications and for our potential provider partners, right, when they're engineering their network, right, to know where they're going.
So yeah, just to add to that, the one pagers currently basically have the data from the state maps. We do not have the FCC numbers on there. So that is as the data is reflected on the Illinois broadband map. That is what we have on there. I haven't we've compared these, we have the FCC numbers as well, but it's mostly consistent. There might be a few discrepancies just because we also look on the state map, it's still based on the area and we're estimating the number of households. And with the FCC map, they have the household data already. So with the next map, which is mostly coming out end of May, that is when the Illinois broadband map is also planning to transition to a more granular household level data. That is when we plan on actually comparing the two numbers, because we'll have the exacts and it's going to be apples to apples sort of comparison. That is when we'll have a better sense of, do those match? Are there a lot of discrepancies and things like that?
So Shabika, how long would it take once you get that FCC data at the end of May to update these one sheets?
We'll try to get them done as soon as possible. So after we have the data, it shouldn't take more than a week to update the numbers. Yeah.
And May, am I correct on this? The May 30th is the big mapping deadline, because that's when the big BEAD allocation formula will run. Do we know
No,
that?
so the May 30th is for the new state maps coming out.
Oh, okay.
And then June 30th is the allocation.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. That sounded wrong when I said it, so I'm glad I asked to get that clarification. So 30th of May, Illinois maps, 30th of June, the sort of really big BEAD allocation formula is going to run for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So Shabika graciously reminded me that her and Charles, who's also on this call with the Illinois Broadband Lab, are working on a resource with helping with permitting and easements. And I know Mary Gay as well, I think she's on this call, yes, has been working on some of that. So I want to stay on mapping for now, and then I would like to kind of just turn to that resource about easements and communicating that issue with ISPs, because I know that has come up as an area that would be helpful for counties. So does anybody have any kind of more questions around mapping or one pagers? No. Okay. Well, I encourage everyone to check out the one pagers. They'll be updated. There's going to be more there. It's an ongoing process. And as always, the Illinois Broadband Lab map is a really good resource to look at Connect Round 3 eligibility territories and the rest. So Shubika or Charles or Mary even, do you want to talk a little bit about the work that you're doing around the permitting and easements and what your goal with that project are or is?
Sure, I can talk about the project, like the resource that Charles and I are creating. So this is basically based on our conversation with Brian from Jackson County, where we kind of realized that they need some more guidance on how to work with ISPs and build those partnerships. And a lot of times that has to do with things that counties can bring to the table, including help with easements, permitting and all of that. So we're trying to put together resources and basically local examples, so Illinois examples of how things are happening and challenges that counties are facing, and then just generally more about what the process might look like, that sort of a resource. So I think what we're interested in definitely is listening to how far you've gone since building the plan through the in your cohort, how far that's gone, if you've been able to, a few of us counties here, you have devoted ARPA funding to broadband expansion and all of that, and then a few of you have built successful partnerships with certain ISPs but are trying to cover the entire county, and so challenges around that. So just interested in hearing where you're at in the process, and if we have success stories of this is how we were able to build a successful partnership with an ISP, or this is how we kind of overcame the challenges that come with permitting and just easements and right-of-ways. So we're interested in hearing about that, and if we have follow-ups, we'll certainly probably reach out to you after today's meeting so that we can capture more details and then just make that widely available to communities across Illinois.
Katie, I see your hand is raised, and so yes, just a little ground rules. Raising your hand is a great way to help keep us organized. So if people don't know where that is, it should be at the bottom of your screen. There's a little reaction button. Also, feel free to use the chat and keep that active. If people want to put questions there, we can kind of queue them, or people can respond to them immediately. So go for it, Katie. Katie Heaton, you're muted. Or maybe you accidentally raised your hand, I'm not sure.
So Robbie, I'd like to get back to the communities doing some talking.
Yes.
But before I do that, I'd like to just say to Shubika about the easements and permitting that if you don't know about the Champaign County Farm Bureau's efforts around easements and working with farmers, I think that's a really good example. So I just want to throw that out there. Big effort, website, 60 meetings with farmers, really trying to streamline the easement conversation with their local ISP. Okay, I'm going to pick and choose some people, and I do see David Amore. David Amore up there on my upper left. So David, I'm going to pick on you.
Okay. And this is basically for an update on our county efforts?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Well, that has certainly evolved over time. When we started with the Accelerate program, we initially were thinking, because I think this was kind of the default framework of putting together a plan for the whole county, kind of universal, expanding universal access. As we got further into it, we realized that given the nature of our county, which is roughly half of the county is already considered served by FCC guidelines, and another half is not. And also that we have a number of local providers, well-established local providers, as well as some majors in our area. And the fact that we had set aside ARPA dollars with the view of being able to use those for matching grants, that our focus really shifted to targeted projects. And we've done one of those already, working with a provider to we made a matching grant that allowed them to expand in one of our townships to about 50 households. We've made a conditional commitment to matching grant for another proposal that's currently under review in the Connect Illinois round 3. And we've just received, in response to an RFI that we issued to really contacted about 8 or 9 different ISPs and have heard from 4 with potential projects. We're just at the point of trying to review those. We know that the clock is ticking, so we want to move quickly, but there's enough overlap in where they're all proposing to be that it's going to be complicated to try to figure out the optimal way of allocating our dollars. So that's been the major focus, I think. We really hadn't thought very much about the digital equity side now, but we're starting to pay attention more to that, both to try to perhaps organize some of our own resources to work with local agencies, primarily in the city of Galesburg, but and also some nonprofits to try to facilitate ACP enrollment, but also I think there's a lot of education to do on that. It's complicated. People have non-trivial reasons for deciding not to enroll, even when they can. So that's going to be a work in progress, I think, in the next little while. We'd like to get ourselves well positioned for when the digital equity grants come available later. Haley, is there anything that you would add?
I think you covered where we're at, David.
Okay, thanks. And be happy to answer any further questions about that.
Does anybody else have a similar approach to sort of being more targeted in their efforts to unserved areas? I think that's a very valuable lesson learned, David, given sometimes the limited ARPA dollars or resources for match. Anybody else doing that kind of thing? Susan, I'm going to pick on you next. Thank you, David.
All right, so we are the group from Elsa, Illinois, which is a little bitty town on the Mississippi River down between Grafton and Alton. And we thought we were doing great right after our program ended last summer. We had Whisper is already our primary provider in the area, but not the only one. But anyway, they do the wireless mesh, and they came through and they had a meeting. They said, we're going to upgrade you to fiber to each home. It was all good and we were all excited. And anyway, long story short, it just fell apart. The person we were communicating with at Whisper left Whisper or was asked to leave. I'm not sure. He's not there anymore. And then I've been pushed around to a couple of other people. This always happens right before a deadline is due for the grants and stuff. And as of now, the person that I'm supposed to communicate with, I haven't heard a thing from him. So I don't know. I'm very disappointed. We're all frustrated, and I'm lost. I don't know what to do.
Thank you for sharing that, Susan. I gather there were some missed deadlines and opportunities with your Connect Illinois 3 application, which complicated also that 1 year of the administrative hold on the program. I think was disruptive to a lot of people on the call. Nothing
Right.
the state could help, but I know in your situation that complicated things and probably complicated things for some other people on the call.
Correct. And anyway, so again, I'm open to any advice. I feel like we're kind of back to square one, which, that's okay. You warned us that this wasn't, a quick job, but anyway, we were hoping it'd be a little easier.
I was going to say Bill's favorite expression, which won't make you feel any better, I'm afraid, but it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Mhm.
I will also note, Susan, that you have AT&T serving a college close by, and they did not want to extend that service to your town. So
Correct.
you essentially sort of struck out with, that provider, but maybe there's an update there.
Or well, so Whisper, the last that I heard from the guy that I was communicating with, he said that they got a backhaul completed so that the Whisper fiber had connected to AT&T's fiber. That happened sometime over the last fall, I think. And so we thought that was good news. Whisper had already invested the money in that backhaul for us. Again, all these fibers are about a mile from our little valley. And there's another private telephone company that it's called G-Tech, Grafton Technologies. It's about a mile from us also. And they just said they don't have the money. We're too small, that they're not interested. So I don't know what else to do.
Hope you get a responsive person with Whisper finally. That's what I hope.
What I would say, Susan, is that maybe this is a time where you could contact your legislators.
Oh, yes, we've done that.
And then have them push that Whisper at the higher level.
Okay. So, and by doing that, what would that look like? I mean, we've talked to them. I've talked to two, one senator, state senator, and one state legislator. And then I've got another one I have a meeting with in a couple of weeks. And they're just like, oh yeah, we support you. And one of them is on the communication team. And Katie really helped us with communicating with her. And she was very impressed with what Katie had to say. I guess Katie, anyway.
Well, sometimes they would, for example, because they do have some, the communications companies always want something from the legislature. And of course, Whisper probably wants higher levels of eligibility for wireless services in the grant programs. And so if your legislators called and said, we'd like to meet with, we're going to be in the district over here. We want you to come and meet with us and with the community and say, hey, you guys made some promises. What happened? At least get an explanation and know what the barriers are. And the legislative, they have that power of, they have positional power. There is things that they have over the providers that they can influence. And
Okay.
So that would be what I would do.
So we would ask our legislatures to talk to Whisper.
Well, to say, let's go to ELSA and meet the provider, the community, and the legislator or legislators would be in that meeting.
So we would invite Whisper and our legislators to the same room?
Yes. Well, your
Okay.
legislators would do the invitation to
Okay.
the provider.
Okay.
You give them the contact information, give them a little draft letter, they'll send it out, and just find out when they're going to be in the district and close to you on a weekend or on a Friday afternoon or something, and see if they could get that lined up.
Okay. I'm game for that for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
When the velvet glove doesn't work, you have to bring out the hammer, and that is the regulatory funding agencies.
Okay. All right. So here's the other thing with the deadlines coming up. Should I assume I should jump on that right away?
So I don't know how much work Whisper did in looking to fund the project. And so that would be, I think at this point, you're kind of going from ground zero, right, to build the momentum again. So I don't think the deadline matters. That's not
Okay.
going to happen in the next short period.
And these are rolling deadlines too.
Yeah, so
by
you
the
have
way.
90
That's right.
days.
Robbie's told me that. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Susan, for the update. Appreciate it. Gary, how about Whiteside?
Yeah, good afternoon. We are moving along with what we learned during our planning session. And we have come up with our county vision, if you would, for what we're looking for the fiber deployment. We selected an internet service provider, Joe Carroll Energy, Sam Prairie Fiber, to work with us on the build out deployment and the operation of the network for us. We've committed $3 million in ARPA funds for the build out. Joe Carroll will be putting in about 15-16 million as far as matching funds, and that'll get us, we feel, the 25% match to do the entire county's unserved population. We've begun to look into building the apprenticeship program for building the workforce, working with our local workforce board, some of our educational institutions, so that we can be up to speed on that when it's time to start that portion of it. Joe Carroll has submitted their first round 3 applications. So, hopefully we're on schedule and making progress.
Gary, that's terrific news. And I think, honestly, thinking about that workforce issue is really, really critical. We're hearing this all over the country. I know Comcast is on this call. Maybe they don't have a workforce problem. Maybe they'll speak up and say that they too are short of people, but we're hearing that there are supply chain issues, less with fiber, but some with the electronics, and there are workforce issues. And I always urge that if you have programs or you work with your local community college, because they all are also thinking about how to get kids into these programs. I toured all over the state of Missouri, went to 4 different rural community colleges who are looking at these kinds of fiber technician and electric line hanger programs to really deal with the onslaught of projects that are going to be having. But I know Joe Carroll has been very thinking about that. You're very lucky to have such a great provider who has taken advantage of state of Illinois funds in the past and has seemed to have gotten over all the humps that small providers do feel that they are been subject to. So we always tell people to call Jesse Shackleton if they ever want to get over the hump, and he's a good soul and will always share his experiences. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Gary. Any questions for Gary? Otherwise, I'm going to ask Ogle County to talk next.
Yeah, just really quickly to add on that point. Yeah, I spoke with Jesse Shackleton. He was really excited about that program. They're going to be using VR in classrooms and combining it, I think, with their ag sector focused education as well. So just perhaps spreading that idea around to other communities. This could really be a great opportunity to get young students or people looking to make career changes into those situations where they're learning those new technologies, maybe in conjunction with ag education, and then are available there for that sort of local hiring initiatives as part of the Connect Illinois program. So I think there's a really, really great kind of synergistic work that can happen there. So just want to, give Gary and Jesse extra praise. And if people have questions or want to follow up, I think that would be a really interesting thing to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, I'm going to jump off the meeting in a few minutes. I've got an appointment I've got to get over to, but it was great seeing everyone and hearing about the progresses and hopefully some of the challenges you're making or running into to be figured out. But I think, obviously the Benton Institute and our friends at the Broadband Lab and the Illinois Broadband Office. I mean, they're all been great supporters and wealth of knowledge and information. So thank you to everyone who's helped us so far, and good luck to everyone else.
And Gary, I want to thank you also for participating in the listening sessions, because I gather that you attended one of the state of Illinois listening sessions, and that's very helpful for people to hear, people on this call to participate in those. So thank you very, very much.
Welcome.
I'm going to turn this over to Ogle County, whether Pat or Chris would like to talk.
I'll let Pat talk. She's in charge.
The only time I get to be in charge. Thanks, Chris. So Ogle County has 51,000, just a little over 51,000 residents with the 2020 census. And we have 1,763 square miles and 7,000 homes that we need to get broadband, high-speed internet to. The county took the initiative to use first tranche of monies to do redundancy for about 30 miles. We are almost finished with that project, and that's been a 2-year project, 18 months. And that's been supply chain issues, worker issues, EPA issue, and now it has a little bit of a hiccup with a lease agreement in regards to middle of the road. But hopefully that's going to get resolved. Second tranche of monies, we applied for NTIA middle mile. So we've been anxiously waiting to hear and trying to razz everyone and anyone that will listen to us to support and hear when the monies are going to come available and who's been awarded. And we think now maybe June would be the award date. So we have a little over 3 million that's been allocated for broadband. And Shabika's maps in that 2-pager is really nice. And I think we're going to start pushing those out. Marcia had a really good idea just sitting here that we make every county board member a community anchor. So maybe we start our own community anchor program. And I think that might be beneficial in itself. The team met with Joe Carroll. So they had a really good meeting there and gave some great insight in regards to lease agreements. So we're going to tackle lease agreements coming up. And I think I'll reach out to Champaign also just to see what they have learned. And then I like the community anchor idea. So we're about into year 3 of a 5-year plan. And now we're starting to build on that 5-year plan to make it a 7-year plan now.
Thank you, Pat. And I might also add that Pat's team just went through the Broadband Breakthrough Program just to do some further education and brought your Farm Bureau team to the table. So we really loved seeing you there. You were sort of the pair, I mean, I don't know what the right analogy is. I was going to say you were the grande dame in the room because you'd been through a program already, and a lot of the new teams that had participated in that ag focused program were looking up to Ogle and already the accomplishments they had under their belt. So I appreciate that you and Marcia and Chris went through that program again and built on some of your early successes. Thanks very much, Pat. I do think the interesting lesson learned here is looking at that middle mile backbone is a strategy that many of you talked about. I'm making a segue now to go to Mercer County because I know that that was a strategy for you all. And I don't know whether Cassie or Kyle are going to talk a little bit about the update from Mercer.
This is Cassie. I can kick it off, and then Kyle, if you want to chime in if I'm forgetting anything, please do. And it's a no video day today, folks, so apologies there. Right now, Mercer County is, oh my gosh, we are leaps and bounds from where we started with the Accelerate program. All of our local internet service providers have stepped up to say that they will be a part of this program with us. They had some hesitancy because of, they applying for grants and then managing them affected their organizational capacity and their business capacity. And of course, the return on investment for them wasn't attractive enough. And so we just continued to have those conversations to say, okay, well, what would make it attractive? What's your, I guess, lack for a better word, price point? What's the balance? What do you need? How do we do this? Because the big lesson that we learned through the Accelerate program in creating that vision was that broadband as a project was going to also be an economic development priority. And so by doing that and learning that through the program, we knew that we wanted to prioritize building local because it affected a larger vision and a larger strategy that we were in the middle of working on, that we finally were on the ends of that. And so all 4 of our local ISPs, we have 3 in-county telcos, and then we have 1 out-of-county telco that is only out of county by the river, barely, and they are serving our southwestern portion of the county. And so because they were able to do that, we've come together over the past year to create what our fiber build out is going to look like, serving more than 80% with a fiber wireline, to house fiber in preparation for what may be a couple of phases with how the engineering is looking on what this might cost. We may phase it out to do exactly what you're saying and do some backbone, some fiber to the home in preparation for the next couple of years and additional funding to get then that last mile, if that makes sense. And so right now, our engineering firm that has worked with all of the local ISPs already, they should be getting their final, and I'm going to say this just because I'm not a science person, their sciencey stuff by the end of the month to prepare us for a price tag, where the holes are going to be dug. I mean, all the way down to what this is going to look like in preparation for our grant application that we are planning to submit by the end of June. So that same engineering firm also does grant writing services. So all of them, they're going to get all of this done for us, and we are going to have our application submitted by the end of June. And the plan is to do the full build out. I think the way that we are, what we're learning is that each of our ISPs is going to submit an application, which of course we're submitting on behalf of them through the grant writer. That was our organization's, that was our skin in the game to say, okay, we'll handle the capacity load of what it means to apply for, manage, and report on grant funding, and project manage that. And so we're really excited about that. We will know more detail by the end of May of really how big this first round of infrastructure build out is going to be. And we're anticipating needing another round of some kind, whether it's through BEAD funding or what have you. So that's happening. That will be submitted in June. And then on the other side of that, because we were able to secure an LFA fellow last summer, we just found out that we were selected as a host site again this year. That person has been leading outreach, and we have recently secured local investment and gifts for our outreach program to continue and grow all the way through the end of 2025. So right now, because the Accelerate program helped us realize that our biggest gap in terms of outreach, of course, and maybe it's not our biggest gap, but our lowest hanging fruit with enough priority, I should say, because we definitely have a gap with our hospital system. But a senior digital literacy program has been taking place for the past few months. So we're going to be able to continue that and expand that to schools and libraries and cities with a partnership through our local 4-H. So we're going to teach them how to become digital literacy educators, and we're going to get our students involved. So we're really excited about that. And then as we expand that program through the end of 2025, we're going to make those programs larger and then do some technology loaning programs, PCs for people, really start pushing the ACP program. That we'll be able to really do that once we know what our build out's going to look like. And then the third piece that is still kind of an idea in the clouds for our outreach work is this idea of community internet hubs. And so as we learned that the price tag of our build out is probably going to be large enough to require more than one, phase of funding, we said, okay, well, what can we do in the meantime? How does that fit into our larger economic development vision? And there are big goals in workforce development, and Kyle's been leading with his organization, MCBT, a workforce development task force. And so we're partnering with them to learn about what their priorities are, and hopefully do some kind of an internet hub co-work space building to be a place for community to come and use internet whenever they need to, but also work remotely, because that's something that we have prioritized in our larger economic development plan. That's directly tied to how we're building our broadband infrastructure. Obviously, we're going to make sure that there's fiber where we're building houses and in the downtowns where we're going to promote remote work. And then some workforce development. So the three parts of that outreach program, the digital literacy, technology loaning, and then the community space, we're really excited about that. And we've secured the initial seed funding and investment to expand that through the end of 2025. So a lot of big stuff going on.
Wow, Cassie, that's just an incredible update. And I love all the way the pieces are fitting together and how you're thinking about this holistically. For the sake of time, unless there are any questions directly with Cassie, I'd like to move on to, I don't think we've heard from the Peoria team. Kathy or someone else from that team?
I can start, and Beth may want to chime in a little bit more with the things that are happening at the city level in terms of strategic planning, and also there is a racial equity and justice group that is working pretty effectively in the Peoria area. I will be fairly brief. I think the primary thing that has happened in our region, and it really is an opportunity for all 5 of our counties, but in particular, I think it was a direct result of the Accelerate Broadband Planning that we garnered attention from the Just Transition Fund. And that's thanks to Adrian and others of talking about our good work in planning and building local teams. We were selected to receive funding and to work with the Just Transition Fund in initiating a pilot around programming or support that could be offered to rural communities impacted by coal plant closures, and support them in expanding broadband opportunities. And so we proposed to do 2 things. One is that we would launch feasibility studies, which would, as several of the other counties have talked about, it's really about getting additional hard data around where the existing service gaps are and what kind of models of build could occur in those areas that would begin to service the needs. Putting together the financials around that build too is a really important part of what we're expecting to see at the end of the feasibility study. And this was at the direct request of our internet service providers. The smaller companies in particular do not have the research teams to build that kind of grounding data that they need to be competitive in their grant seeking. So they were asking us to pursue this feasibility study approach. So we've started that in Peoria County, and we have the support in Tazewell and Mason counties to move forward with those feasibility studies that hopefully will give us additional grounding. I think the other, and this didn't come directly out of our team, but let me stop for just a second. So the data that we gathered in our Accelerate Broadband team has been utilized by at least one of the private companies in pursuit of Connect Illinois funding. And I'm really curious to see what may happen with this proposal that has been submitted, because it's a company that previously has not worked with grant funding. And so that to me is kind of a touchstone that the attitudes, or I'm not gonna, it's not as much an attitude, or it really has to do with staffing within some of these ISPs is not as robust. You know, if you're a private company, you don't have the teams of people that can really do that research and grant management piece. And so these firms have been apprehensive, reluctant to even get into this grant development field. And so this was a first time in with this company. And, you know, they worked with an outside firm for the writing of the proposal, but the firm found our data that we had provided to them as part of our Accelerate Broadband effort very beneficial to the application. So we'll see if it yields results for this company, but I think kind of two things there, leveraging the data and then also that approach that these companies are beginning to think differently about how can I find ways to get involved in this grant management grant as part of our business planning model. We have a lot of activity, and Beth's probably in a better position than I am to talk about the number of different ways that our region is involved in digital literacy or workforce development initiatives. Caterpillar Foundation has invested in One Tech for a training certification program, and we're expecting that to launch the first part of June. It's a very comprehensive programming approach, and we'd be happy to share any of the outline that accompanies that work. But you know, they are launching this pilot in several different cities across the nation, and Peoria, because of the strong Caterpillar presence, was one of the sites that they had selected to fund. It's challenging to get to reach the targeted population that they're pursuing in this programming, but it's certainly the right reach, to make that. They really want to get into those low-income neighborhoods. They want to reach people that have had difficult workplace, securing a re-entering the workplace for whatever reasons. So I think it's the right approach. It's just finding the right outreach to make that happen. At the same time, we have the Good Jobs Challenge that's happening through the community college. And that too is really aimed at building those tech credentials and securing the workforce there. I'm really, the other dimension that I know that our colleges are really interested in is that technician to help with the broadband infrastructure. So if there are resources or individuals that we should connect with for those certificate programs, I'd really like to be able to pass that on to the community colleges, because they are actively working to develop those programs right now at the request of our local ISBs. So, and I wish, you know, if you had a magic wand, I wish there was an easier way to pursue this and coordinate it at the state level, right? So we have the community college board has done a really good job of clustering around specific issues in the past, but I'm not aware of any discussion, and that doesn't mean it's not happening, but I've not heard conversations around how the system across the state is organizing to meet that need in terms of workforce development.
You know, Kathy, I think that is such a really fantastic point. And interestingly enough, the, you know, Heartland Forward, who ended up funding this program, is very involved in workforce issues. And so I'll make sure you have plenty of state of Illinois reps on this call to take this back, but I think it would be really good for Heartland, who has a specific workforce development initiative, to hear this as well. Thank you so much, Kathy, for being really articulate about this issue. I'd like to move to Kankakee County, and then I want to make sure that I haven't left anybody out. I may have, so I'm going to check my notes. Let's see. I don't know if Delbert is on, but I do think Ben Wilson is here, right?
I am. I was
Great.
looking to see if Chad was still on the call. No, Delbert's got a conflict today. I guess we in Kankakee, and like many of you, have relied very heavily on our partners. From a planning standpoint, coming out of Accelerate, we've relied pretty heavily on the Regional Planning Commission, and Chad is the county board representative for RPC. And so they've kind of continued a holistic approach to broadband planning, but and I know Kay's on the call. They've been working very diligently at Comcast to make sure that we have as many opportunities as possible in our community. And I know that they've submitted a few grants, you know, through their agency, kind of on our behalf, where we could support some more rural broadband initiative within Kankakee County. We are in a little bit of limbo. We got a $3 million allocation for the Pembroke Township Hopkins Park area. I know that rules are being promulgated for that right now as part of some greater initiatives. And I know that Mr. Schmidt's working on that. So good things are happening. It's just, you know, sometimes a little bit of hurry up and wait. I appreciate the commentary earlier about it being a marathon. I've been doing this long enough. I don't have high expectation of things happening quickly, but I can say it feels like the pieces that need to be moving are moving in a pretty timely manner. So it's good to see. It was really, I mean, for Adrian, for your team, I appreciate all the work that was put into this. I feel like sometimes we mention broadband and talk about broadband, but this really kind of galvanized our team to talk more about how to get broadband in the areas where we didn't have it, how to get people the services, the essential services they need. So I certainly appreciate all the time that everybody's put into this.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it too. So what I'm hearing is that Comcast has submitted some Connect Illinois 3 grants for Kankakee County.
It's actually
that's correct, Kay.
Sorry, Ben, I cut you off. It's actually 4 grants that we submitted in what we call round 3A for Kankakee County. So those were submitted, Art, keep me honest, 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's right, Kay. That's correct.
So it's really recent, and we're reaching out to community stakeholders to let them know that we're reapplying for the program that was placed on hold, I guess, almost a year ago now.
That's right. Thank you very much. That's great news. So I think, Mary, are you prepared to talk about the Kaskaskia College region? I'm not sure anybody else is on the call.
Yeah, I'm the only one here from Kaskaskia. I don't have a ton of updates, but and I'm sure more stuff is happening that I'm not aware of, but I think one of the biggest things that came out of that region participating in Accelerate was the fact that in Clinton County, they have sort of rearranged the structure of their like county government and created a position specifically dedicated to broadband in Clinton County, which is really exciting. And the woman who is in that role is named Cheryl, and she was part of our group.
Oh, yeah,
so
I
she went
remember.
through Accelerate with us and with that group, and is now still working on it and still active in Clinton County, to the point that Kaskaskia is still doing work on it as well. They agreed to host one of the listening sessions that the state ran down in when they came to Southwestern Illinois. So I don't have a lot of details. I don't know about money and stuff like that, unfortunately, but there is still efforts going on, and there are still champions in our region. So that's exciting. And also just really quick, this isn't exactly related to Accelerate, but Robbie mentioned earlier some work happening in Southwestern Illinois on rights of ways and easements. It's not exactly related to that, but that is part of it. I am the leadership council that I'm working with. We are starting to pilot a broadband certification program for communities. This is based off of efforts taking place that have already happened in Indiana and some other states. And we're trying to bring that into Illinois. I have some documents that I've been working on. So basically what happens is with a working group of some ISPs and both a city, county, and village representatives worked on a model ordinance that local governments can pass to kind of signal to ISPs that they're making it easier to invest in their area. But that is still beneficial to them. And then one of the ISPs we worked with was very kind and gave us their right of way, a kind of universal right of way agreement that they actually agreed upon with a city in our region. They took the names out of that and stuff, but it's a model right of way agreement between an ISP and a city that we're gonna make public at some point, so other places can look into that. So I can put my email in the chat if anyone's interested in learning more about this. I don't want to take up too much time right now, but I am working on getting that kind of up and running, especially down in Southwestern Illinois, but hopefully in the whole state.
That's terrific, Mary. That does provide such a great service to the whole state. And I think Indiana has made enormous strides on that particular issue, which I know was a bit of a hurdle for those ISPs that had been trying to do build out in rural Indiana. And I know the broadband director there, and yeah, I think it was just a big problem they decided to tackle early on. Now, I want to make sure that I have not missed anybody. Jackson, thank you, Brian. You asked the question early on, but I didn't get your update. Thank you very much. Yes.
Oh, you're welcome. Adrian, it's good to be here. I'll just make this as quick as I can. So the Connect Jackson County Committee, and by the way, Robert's on the call as well as Lynn. So please chime in anytime you wish, Robert or Lynn. We've really focused on access, adoption, affordability with access. Priority one, we've gone through the RFI process. We've really narrowed it down to 3 providers. They presented their plans to the county board last week. I believe after listening to the county board, they're really down to 2 providers that they're interested in and partnering with to make applications for grants. We're going with a holistic countywide approach addressing all unserved and underserved areas. One of those providers is they're in the big 3, but they have issues with very poor customer service perception. And the other is a co-op who is just south of the county. So we've got to work our way through that, which brings me to legal liabilities and partnerships and whether we have any type of sample agreements out there when we're looking at public-private partnership. And it also leads me to another question regarding some of our counties as they enter into these agreements, are they just simply allowing the grant agreement itself to be the partnership agreement?
Robbie, I think that the publication that Joanne did at CTC did have some good information on public-private partnership agreements. And Brian, if we can't pull up, they've written several reports for us. I have to figure out which one does have that information. And if not, we'll send that to you in a follow-up. Bill, do you have any comments about whether the grant agreement should serve or there should be a separate agreement? I'm sort of a big paper, plaster it with paper person.
You
These
mean
are all
an agreement between the county and the providers?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think anytime you're putting money in, if you are, then there might be things that you would ask for that might be of high value to you and low cost to the provider. Sometimes communities would ask for dark strands of fiber.
Yeah.
Depending on the provider, they may or may not like that. But certainly digital equity commitments. And so to put together a list that you say, look at, we're supporting the grant, we're putting money in. Here's some things that, we think that we could partner on, and get the provider to commit to be part of the economic development group, be responsive on economic development, all kinds of things that may or may not really cost anything, but at least have a moral commitment to them for them to be responsive.
Which leads me, Bill, to our state's attorney. Their office is, they're saying they're really not confident in doing this work, and they're asking us to find a private attorney or to assist them in this work. Which also leads me to asking Robbie and you and Adrian if there are any recommendations, right, for counties and municipalities in regards to legal advice.
I think I'd go for a economic development specialist. So, like Chapman Group, I think, that did the presentation on Illinois powers of, public broadband. I can look back, or you can look back and see who that was. And otherwise, I'm pretty far removed from that. But if you're economic development folks, those firms are usually pretty integrated into the local or the county, or the statewide economic development group. And that would be a place to go to locate those people that they follow the law, but I know they know every little niche in them too. So
yeah.
And I don't know if this is helpful. This is Cassie Henshaw from Mercer. We intend on having many contracts or agreements between our public and private, all the stakeholders. So there will be one between the county board and this entire initiative, whoever is owning that. There will be one between our ISPs and our prosperity group. Mostly the county one is mostly for like the larger, like Bill was saying, the larger economic development, like moral endorsements, essentially. I don't know if it helps, but I just wanted to share that we've had that conversation and plan on having something as all of this stuff gets finalized. Yeah.
Let me add just this is not exactly parallel, Brian, to yours because we're going piecemeal, but the one grant agreement that we have set up with the proposal that's been submitted did include requests about dark fiber, making sure that the specified numbers of households were going to be served, insisting on anchor institution coverage and that kind of thing. That seemed to be acceptable to both parties. So I think for something that is much larger than that, you maybe need to go quite a bit further.
Thank you.
That's terrific. And thank you for bringing that up because, we sort of stopped the program and, you're standing at cliff's edge. Many of you have gone to the feasibility study, which I think was very smart so that you could get whether you do something very broad just to get a general sense of the cost, or you go very specific with specific engineering specifications. That's one thing, the grant writing. So you saw Peoria looking at Just Transition Fund, which again is a funder of coal impacted communities, and Peoria has a coal plant, I believe, that is closing, and so that's why they were eligible for that grant. And then you have the grant writing and the legal part of it. So you guys are identifying sort of three areas where you all are kind of trying to figure it out by yourselves. And I think by having this kind of call, we can urge you all to share resources and best practices. So you've heard a lot about, you know, what people are doing, and I hope that you wouldn't mind if we share everyone's. Maybe we'll do this by county if people want to do it. I don't want too much inundation of questions, but maybe we'll facilitate sending out some contact information if people don't mind speaking with people further. I did note that Matt Schmidt has come on to the call. Matt, we're going to wrap up in about 4 minutes. Again, have I missed anybody, or does anybody have any further general comments that they would like to make before I let Matt have the final word? He always loves this because he thinks, but you know, I'm glad you're here, Matt. This has been really an extraordinary 90 minutes, and I'd like to do it again. Robbie, you had your hand up, maybe.
Well, yeah, obviously I'll let Matt speak. I just had some things that I just wanted to talk about that I have everybody on the call for the upcoming listening tour and that sort of thing. But I'll kick it to Matt just for some closing remarks. Just
okay, and then don't go because Robbie has some nags.
All right. So this is not the final word, but thanks a lot, Adrian and everybody, for a great session. I've been listening, kind of multitasking a little bit, but this is just great. Love this program and the fact that there's been progress made over the last year. First of all, if you're having trouble reaching out to a private provider, identifying somebody to partner with, let me know. We are going to be obligated to get to every last unserved location in Illinois. And so maybe we can work on identifying a pilot approach to meeting your needs now. And so just let me know if you have any issues, and of course I reach out to you, Susan, offline. So we'll try to find that path forward. In terms of like model, ordinance language. So Mary Gay spoke to what they're doing at SWIL, and also looking at like grant agreement language or MOU language. What we'd like to do at the lab and the office is collect some of that documentation that's been essentially posted online, adopted, it's in the public domain right now, and create a catalog of existing, legal agreements, MOUs, et cetera, that your local government can pull from, or your organization can pull from. There's some of this available outside of the state of Illinois, but for our purposes, those local governments or organizations that have leaned in, tried to forge partnerships or collaborative agreements with providers, we'd like to kind of point a light at what has worked so far in Illinois. And so just look for more resources down the pike along that front. And it kind of brings me to something that we'll be standing up this summer. That is our Connected Community Certification Program, just acknowledging local governments and others that have done what they can do to prepare themselves for broadband investment and digital equity progress. And so all of this really kind of lines along that same line, preparing local governments to be active in this space and giving you the resources to move forward. So again, hats off for a great program. It's just incredible to see folks staying engaged and making progress. And this is the best part of the job. So Robbie, Adrian, Bill, everybody at the lab team, thank you so much. You're doing great work.
Thank you, Matt. And we really appreciate your support, moral and otherwise. Of course, the state of Illinois ran the application process, and without the support of Matt's team at the Illinois Broadband Lab would make Bill's and my job a heck of a lot harder. And also Nancy has just been, she and Mike and other people at Extension have been so wonderful. So Robbie, I'm going to let you have the last word.
Right.
But I do want to just shout out to Bill. Everybody can give a thumbs up, an applause, because Bill has just been an incredible community coach for this program. And, we really do stand ready to be helpful. So you all have our contact information. But I think there've been some incredibly great ideas coming out of this. The issue of workforce development certifications, permitting and easements, sort of the general understanding of how to interact either from a legal or other perspective with your ISPs as you enter into these agreements. And then, of course, just we want to stay in touch. So we may do another one of these in 6 months. I'm wowed by the turnout. Honestly, that just makes me feel very warm and fuzzy inside. So appreciate everybody. Robbie.
Yes, I echo everything Adrian had said. Some other themes is that workforce development stuff, and then kind of continuing into the digital equity realm. That's something else that we've heard. So all of these, I think, are going to be helpful for future programming or webinar ideas. I know Nancy and I have been kind of communicating in the chat on some of these ideas. Last thing that I just wanted to mention, if you have not done the Accelerate survey form, we'll include that as well. And then I just wanted to give a little bit of attention to some of the statewide efforts that the Illinois Broadband Lab is doing. So for the members from Peoria and Kankakee, we have upcoming listening sessions. So we're going to be in Peoria on May 17th, Aurora May 18th, Kankakee May 25th. So we would love to kind of keep in touch with you about spreading the word and potentially have you present actually about your efforts in front of local government or community organizations and residents. So please follow up with me on that. And then I also just wanted to bring to people's attention, there is a statewide survey. I know you're all a little bit surveyed out with your communities, so it's something we'll be touching on and following up with, but I'm going to put a link to it in the chat. It'll be in a follow-up email. This goes out statewide to help with the state digital equity plan that's currently being written, just to kind of capture anybody's opinions or thoughts that they have in their experience with broadband as the state kind of works on developing its plans for funding and other digital equity initiatives. That's all from me. I'm going to stay on just a little bit if people have follow-up questions or ideas that came up when they were speaking. But besides that, thank you all so much for this session. It was really informative, really great. I appreciate you all attending. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you.